squad, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back once again with another exciting edition of AEW Dynamite Graded. This week was huge, the big go-home show for Full Gear this weekend. Remember, myself and Owen, who you might have seen do Twitch streams with me every Wednesday, will be doing live reactions to Full Gear on Saturday night, so do join in with us and let's all have a bit of a laugh. But more pressing issues right now, how good was yesterday's Dynamite? There's only one way to find out, and that's by assigning each individual segment a wonderful individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. We get a bit of a cold open with Chris Jericho behind the curtain talking to Jake Hager, putting him over for his big Bellator victory. Hager's face is obviously still all cut up because it was quite a grueling contest from what I gather. I didn't actually see it, but Jericho seems pretty pleased. But now here comes MJF and Wardlow on their way to the opening match of the night, and MJF says to Jericho, look, I don't want this tension to get in the way of our friendship, and tonight you're going to see exactly why I deserve to be in the inner circle. And Jericho goes, don't know, Max. You seem a bit soft to me. Oh. And so we get the proper opening. We move on to the first match of the night with Jericho on guest commentary. It's MJF and Wardlow taking on the team of Santana and Sammy Guevara. Bit of an odd pairing, but both Inner Circle members, of course. Let's see how they do. It goes back and forth. It's obviously a heel versus heel match, but it seems like, weirdly, the Inner Circle are kind of the baby faces in the match, kind of just by default, really. MJF and Wardlow sort of dominate for a little while at first, until Sammy gets the hot tag and just starts to run wild. Himself and MJF do a nice exchange of kip-ups and everything. Often it's easy to forget how nimble and athletic MJF is, but he is. Sammy, of course, you can never forget how athletic he is. And they go back and forth for a bit until MJF pokes him in the eye to gain the advantage. You dirty little man. Wardlow a bit later on manages to hit the F10 on Ortiz. It looks like the match is going to be over, but Sammy breaks up the pinfall with a crossbody from the top rope, and then Sammy just runs wild, man. He does a springboard 360 thing down onto MJF on the outside, and then celebrates, and then flips off Serpentico in the front row, and then Serpentico removes his mask. And it's not Serpentico at all, it's Matt Hardy, and he launches a chair into Sammy's face, hyping up their match, of course, at Full Gear. Back in the ring, this leaves Ortiz all alone by himself, and he shortly falls victim to the Salt of the Earth Fujiwara armbar from MJF. He tippity taps out, and that's enough for MJF and Wardlow to get the win. But it's not all over yet, because as they are leaving, MJF jumps Chris Jericho at the announce table, starts to beat him down, and gets dragged away. And Jericho smiles after him because he's like, yeah, he's got guts, this kid. I wonder how happy Jericho's going to be when MJF absolutely screws him over at Full Gear. I don't know how, but he surely will. This opening bout gets an A- grade from me. Originally, I was going to give it a B+, but two things push it to the next level for me, really. One, the post-match angle with MJF and Jericho and their little brawl. That was really good stuff. And also, Sammy Guevara's general performance. He came to play in this match. Like The Miz, but with more flips. Next up, we get a sit-down interview with Kenny Omega and Tony Schiavone. They are in a house, there's a little dog there. They seem to be in Kenny's house, and Tony's like, love your house, Kenny. Love your little dog as well. And Kenny's like, thanks, Tony. It's not actually my house, we're just in the middle of moving somewhere. This isn't my dog even. And he moves the dog, and I'm just like, oh, wow, what a fraud. Kenny is supremely confident in this interview, man, and just very unlikable because of it, which is great. Tony brings up the fact that he's had to beat replacements, you know, Sonny Kiss and Penta, to get to the final, and he says, did you think it would be you versus Hangman in the final? And Kenny's like, nah, I thought it would be Wardlow, to be honest. Oh, horrible. Kenny closes by saying that he's won every tournament he's entered. Not certain if that's true. I don't know if he's won every G1 climax he's entered, for example, but you know, he's won one of them, I suppose. He says that he is destined to win this tournament and go on to win the title. Later on, I'm going to run them together, even though it came later on in the show, but later on we get a sit-down interview with Hangman Page conducted by Jim Ross. Hangman is also supremely confident, but in a very different way. He's drunk, he's in the middle of a drink as he's doing the interview, and JR will say something like, what's your strategy going into this? And Hangman's like, I know all of his moves, so it should be fine. Yeah, it should be fine. JR correctly goes, I don't think you are as confident as you seem. I think you're nervous. And Hangman, oh man, there's so much sympathy in this promo. He's like, well, I am nervous, and I think everyone's nervous when they go through that tunnel, and I think they're lying if they say they're not. I really need to beat Kenny Omega, and if I don't, then all I've got is this glass of whiskey. And I'm just like, oh, Hangman, he needs to win. He's not even going to. I think Kenny's going to win, and it's going to be heartbreaking. A little bit later on from that as well, we get this amazing, like really cheesy video package about their tag team breakup and all the tension between them. Set to Cinderella's "Don't know what you got until it's gone." I'm not too familiar with Cinderella, but they're a bit like a bootleg Guns N' Roses. Have I offended some people by saying that? Any big Cinderella fans out there? This gets an A- grade to me. It's hard to give a pair of sit-down interviews and a video package anything too high, but I thought they were excellent. A- is what I'm giving it. They really just did the job needed in a bit of an understated way until we got to the video package, and then it was in a big 80s glam rock sort of way. Next up, singles action, as Miro has his first singles match in AEW taking on Trent. Jericho is a bit, well, he says a few controversial things on commentary for me in this one. First of all, he says, trying to put him over as a big monster heel, he says Miro gets bigger and uglier every week that I see him. Now, first of all, come on Chris, everyone knows that Miro's handsome. Come on. But secondly, he also calls Trent Beretta a lot, which is like his WWE name, and I don't know if we're allowed to do that yet. Maybe we are. We'll talk about names a little bit later on and see, because I don't actually know what the situation is with Trent's name. I know he was applying to be able to use Beretta again, but don't know. Miro interrupts the ring announcements, grabs the mic and insults Trent's mother. Of course that's too far. Trent goes for him, but Miro takes advantage pretty much straight away. Miro begins to dominate this match really, as he probably should. It's really impressive to see him just throw Trent all over the place. But the momentum swings a little bit back in Trent's favour when on the outside, Chuck Taylor attacks Kip Sabian and they brawl to the back. Penelope Ford tries to follow, but Orange Cassidy blocks her path in nonchalant fashion, of course. A little bit later on, a little bit further into the match, the Dark Order come out and jump Orange Cassidy, and the referee ejects them. And look, I'm as big a fan as anyone at seeing John Silver get ejected from a match. His reactions are always priceless. But why are they annoyed this time? It makes no sense, because they've interfered in a match that doesn't even involve any of them. The referee rightly ejects them, and they're like, I can't believe you've done this. Come on, John. Read the rules. Trent fires up, he hits all his babyface offense, but Miro kicks out of the running knee strike, which Trent often uses to put opponents away. So Trent's like, right, I've got to go up top. He goes for a springboard move, slips off the top rope, straight into a super kick from Miro, or like a thrust kick, I guess. And then he locks on the game over camel clutch, and that is game over. Now, if this was a botch, they played it off so well. It looked deliberate almost. I genuinely can't tell, having watched it back even, whether this was a real botch or not. So fair play to them for either having a very unique spot carried off really well, or adapting so fast to what just happened. After the match, Miro locks in the camel clutch once again. Chuck runs down to break it up, but Sabian follows him and the heels beat down the faces. Then Miro cuts a promo on the outside of the ring on the mic, basically just being very Miro about the whole thing. But while he's doing so, Orange Cassidy is back. He's scaled the top rope and he jumps off and lands on both Sabian and Miro to end the segment. This gets a B+ grade because the wrestling was great. Really loved the action between the pair of them. I've mentioned that the botch at the end looked calamitous at first, but they adapted really well, so well that I'm not even sure if it was an actual botch. But it doesn't get a higher grade because there was so much going on around it. It was often quite hard to focus on the match. Obviously the Dark Order getting involved, the brawl between Chuck and Kip on the outside, the whole Penelope Ford Orange Cassidy stuff, and then the whole post-match as well afterwards. It all kind of distracted a little bit from what was otherwise a really good match. Trent was bumping all over the place for Miro here. Next up, Taz and Team Taz, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, crash the show unannounced. They come out, Taz has got a live mic, he says, right, Will Hobbs, the clock is still ticking, are you going to accept our offer? But enough of that for now. And I'm thinking Taz is being very lenient here, because I'm sure he said Will Hobbs had to decide as soon as possible whether he was joining Team Taz or not. And he's kept us waiting for quite a few weeks now, actually. Taz, come on. Make good on your promises. Taz puts over the amazing abilities of his two guys. He says Brian Cage is like 10-1 or something. He says that Ricky Starks has won 10 of his last 11 matches or whatever. He says they're two of the best in AEW. Why are we not on the card for Full Gear? A legit grievance, and I like it. It's a bit of realism. Taz says he sat outside Tony Khan's office for 3 hours, just wanting 2 minutes of his time, but he was told by a production assistant that Tony Khan was too busy dealing with people actually on the Full Gear card. Taz is livid about this. So he brings up the TNT title match of the weekend, Cody versus Darby Allin. Of course, Team Taz already hate Darby Allin, and he says that Cody lives by the motto, do the work. And he says, right now, Team Taz, we feel like we're getting worked. So how about this? I feel like I'm cutting the promo as Taz now. So how about this? At Full Gear, we're going to be there. Basically, he says there's going to be a Team Taz presence at the show. I assume during or after that TNT title match. This gets a B+. Really good promo from Taz. Ricky Starks had a few great lines as well in there, but I'm apprehensive as to how they're going to do this without ruining the Cody and Darby title match. Maybe they'll find a way. There's various different avenues they could go here. Next up, we get the Young Bucks versus Private Party. Private Party are out with Matt Hardy, of course, but he gets jumped immediately on the ramp by Sammy Guevara, getting revenge for the attack earlier, and he leaves him laying and runs off. And Matt Hardy has to be helped to the back. The match begins, and it becomes apparent immediately that Matt Jackson is selling the leg that was injured by FTR recently. A lot of questions about whether he should even be competing in this match with FTR because his leg is so banged up. Nick obviously is concerned, but Matt seems to be soldiering on. But it doesn't really help them at first. Private Party are doing quite well until Isaiah Cassidy gets shoved off the top rope and crashes on the ramp. From there, the Bucks go for the Meltzer driver, but Mark Quinn manages to reverse it into kind of he catches Nick off the springboard and hits like a flatliner DDT combination. Nice counter to the Bucks' signature move. Private Party take control from this point. Few double team moves here and there, a couple of near falls, quite convincing ones as well, although the Bucks are never realistically going to lose this match, are they? Although at one point it really does seem like they're going to actually. They set up for the Meltzer driver once again. Quinn does the finish that they beat the Bucks with. Then it gets reversed by Matt into a roll-up that way, which the Bucks beat Private Party with more recently. Then Quinn reverses that again, and that gets kicked out of. It's a very nice sequence, and I hope that I got everything right there, because I mean, let's be honest, you've got to watch it, because what I just said was basically unintelligible. Finally, the Bucks managed to isolate Mark Quinn, hit the BTE trigger, the double knee strike in the center of the ring, and pin Mark Quinn. But Matt Jackson's leg is banged up from this match. And to make matters worse, here comes FTR and Tully Blanchard to jump the Bucks after the match. They hit the Goodnight Express on Matt. They look to Pillmanize his leg again with the chair, but at the last second, he is saved by Hangman Page. Hangman hits the ring, FTR leave, Hangman looks livid. The Bucks don't really acknowledge him, but Kenny Omega runs down as well to help, and then he and Hangman share like an awkward fist bump and then stare quite intently at each other. Hangman doesn't want to play nice right now, and it is quite good. I really like this development, and it was a great match as well. A lot of convincing near falls, despite it being a match that had, on the surface, a very obvious winner. So I'm going to give it an A grade. Really enjoyed it. Oh man, I can't wait for both of the matches involved in this build. FTR versus the Young Bucks, and of course Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. Next up, Eddie Kingston is out for a face-to-face with Jon Moxley, and Tony Khan has said if they get physical like Olivia Newton-John, then the match is off. Kingston gets right in Moxley's face and delivers one of the promos of the year, basically. It's phenomenal. He says, right, look, I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to take that title, and I'm going to show it to my mother, and I'm going to say, this is why you don't have any grandkids, this is why I've never given you a daughter-in-law, because I've sacrificed everything in my life for this. And I'm just like, whoa. Moxley takes the mic and says that he's learned that loyalty is a bitch in this business, and he's been burned too many times before, but he never thought he'd be burned by Eddie Kingston. He thought they went back too far, they were too good friends. He brings up Eddie's mother, which of course is a bad thing to do. Eddie looks like he's on the verge of killing Moxley, but he can't, because otherwise the match is off. Moxley is saying it's going to be really difficult for you when you realize that everything you've built up, everything you've worked for is all for nothing, because I'm going to keep this belt and you can't take it from me. And you can't live up to a promise that you made your own mother. And I'm like, what are you doing, Moxley? He's going to kill you. Eddie screams that Moxley's going to have to kill him to beat him, because it's an I Quit match, of course, and strides off. And Moxley's like, yeah, well, this Saturday he does the whole wrestler wrap-up thing, but man, Kingston's performance here was something else. So good, in fact, that I'm going to give it an A+ grade. Man, it was just phenomenal. Moxley was great too, but Eddie Kingston might be the best promo in wrestling. I mean, watch this if you haven't seen it already. Next up, the return of Pac. Not really, but in video package form. Pac is on the Tron. He's in the wonderful Northumbrian countryside. He's on the wonderful beaches of the Northeast. And at one point, it looks like he's on a set of steps near my girlfriend's house. That's legit. I'm like, what are you doing there, Pac, mate? Gonna have a word with her after I finish shooting this video, find out what's going on. As if I could do anything if that was the case. Anyway, moving swiftly on from that, Pac is now in his creepy house on that sofa in the darkened room and talks about how isolation makes you crazy. You've got nobody to play with. And then we get some editing and suddenly there's loads of Pacs in the room all around, all chattering away and flexing and doing weird pack things with the hair all over the place. It's very unnerving. That's pretty much it, really. It's more of a concept than it is a storyline development. I guess maybe he'll come back for revenge on Eddie Kingston for stealing his stable from him. I don't know, but it ramps up the intrigue, certainly. No grade though, unfortunately, because it was just too short and I was expecting a bit more. It was really well done, really well performed by Pac, really well edited and shot, but I think I was expecting a bit of a storyline development, but it was only about a minute long, if that. Another no grade segment now, because it was just very short. We head backstage where my boy Alex Marvez is interviewing QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes, the Natural Nightmares, and then he's interrupted by Ali, who comes along and says, "Thanks for letting me use your credit cards, QT, but they're maxed out now," and slaps them into his chest. And they're carrying on with this story, they're trying to justify it still. It's all a distraction from Ali though, as the Butcher and the Blade attack the Natural Nightmares from behind with weapons and beat them down. And we're going to get that match, not at the pay-per-view, but on Dynamite next week. A tag team match between the Natural Nightmares and the Butcher and the Blade. Anyway, straight on to the next match now, which is a women's division match between Nyla Rose, the number 1 contender, of course, for Hikaru Shida's AEW Women's Championship, and Red Velvet, who has Brandy Rhodes in her corner, if you've not been following AEW Dark. And Vicky Guerrero is, of course, in the corner of Nyla Rose. Red Velvet comes out hot at the bell straight away, just attacks Nyla Rose, but it's not long before she starts to lose quite heavily. Nyla dominates for a little bit, hits the Beast Bomb, 1-2. She pulls up Red Velvet and wants to carry on. She looks at Hikaru Shida in the crowd, hits the ropes, uses Hikaru Shida's running knee, and picks up the victory with the stolen finisher. Vicky gets on the mic and walks around the ring, few words for Brandy on the way as well, and then stops by Hikaru Shida and says that Nyla is going to break your bones and take your title at Full Gear. And then she mocks Shida in Japanese, and Shida's had enough. She grabs Vicky by the collar and Nyla rushes in to break it up. There's a few punches exchanged and then they get broken apart. Quite simple stuff here. C+ grade, C for the squash match, plus for a bit of story, and hopefully the match is a good one. It's almost time for the main event, but before that we get another of Darby Allin's home videos. This one is, yeah, so there's a car, right, and it's got Darby's own face spray painted on it. It looks great, and it says the face of TNT. And then he gets in the car by breaking the window with a skateboard, even though I'm assuming it's his vehicle. You know, got keys for that, mate? He gets in and then runs over a stuntman with a Cody mask on. In fact, that may have been Darby, and I think that was a stuntman. I'm not actually certain who it was. Anyway, Darby's so random, isn't he? And we're straight on to the main event of the night. We've got a 6-man tag, Cody, who is defending the belt against Darby at Full Gear, of course, teaming up with Billy Gunn and Austin Gunn, the Gunn Club, to take on 3 members of the Dark Order. We've got 10, we've got Colt Cabana, and we've got John Silver. And it's kind of a standard, easygoing, kind of house showy 6-man tag, dare I say, until Billy Gunn gets the hot tag and he's running wild and it's 1999 all over again. Fameasser 2-10, 1-2, the pinfall gets broken up. Oh, Billy. Oh, make me feel young again. That sounds absolutely horrendous. Cody catches a dive from John Silver on the outside and just slings him into the front row. Back in the ring, Austin Gunn hits the crossroads to Colt Cabana. 10 rushes him. He hits the quick draw to 10, his own finisher. Quick draw because his last name's Gunn, you see? 1, 2, 3, and Austin Gunn has done it. He's picked up the victory for his team. It still looks like it's going to go badly for the faces though, as all the Dark Order members surround the ring. Until, as John Silver sneaks up from behind with a chair, he gets cut off by Orange Cassidy. Big orange punch on the ramp, and Silver is out of there, and the Dark Order all slink away. But now it's time for Cody to close the show. He gets on the mic and cuts a promo on Darby, who is sat once again high in the stands on his own. Cody says that you've been lying, Darby. You've been saying that TNT don't want someone like you as the face of their network. And Darby's sat there, like, no expression on his face, obviously. And Cody's like, I don't think that's true. I think TNT would love you as TNT champion. And I would as well, if the circumstances were different. Meaning, you know, if you didn't have to beat me to get the belt. Cody says he's a huge fan of Darby and explains that he was the one who brought Darby into AEW. And the other EVPs weren't sure about Darby, but Cody vouched for him and wrestled him to prove how good Darby was. Darby still no expression. Cody then says, well, you want to be the ace? You want to win the ace belt? There's only one problem. You're not the ace. I am. And that's how we end the show. But it's not quite how we end the show, because afterwards, footage has emerged of Cody just talking to the live crowd and explaining that he's got his second name, but he's Cody Rhodes once again. Lovely developments there. Anyway, this grade for the final segment is a B+ in my opinion. It was a really standard tag match, but I enjoyed the promo from Cody at the end. I'm excited for that TNT title match, of course, and I really enjoyed the smart booking of having Austin Gunn pick up the win. I assumed he wasn't going to be very good because he's not really featured much at all, but he looks really sharp and obviously really athletic. He's got his father's genes. He's very, very good, or certainly has the potential to be very good. So I'm glad they gave him the win, and I think that adds up to a B+ grade. Overall, I'm going to give this show an A grade. Textbook go-home show. I'm more excited now for most, if not all, of the pay-per-view matches than I was before watching this week's Dynamite. And I really can't think of much else to say. What did you think of this week's show? Let me know in the comments section down below. And a quick reminder as well that myself and Owen will be live streaming our reactions to Full Gear on Saturday. Thanks once again for watching. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.